When humanity made it to space, they didn't know it, but they had become a target. It came as no surprise that aliens had gods of their own, but they couldn't have known just how aggressive these gods were, especially to newcomers. They were empowered by the collective faith of their worlds and saw new worlds as new opportunities to expand their power. Wars were fought over faith, the winners receiving the worship of the now conquered world. That was how it was since before any mortal could remember, and that was how it would always be. At least, that's what these alien gods thought. But when they mustered the forces of their mortals to move on Earth, what they saw terrified them, as nothing ever had before. For their entire existences, they had been either the sole god or pantheon of their respective worlds, the mortals all collectively believing and worshipping them and them alone. As such, they believed that Earth would be the same, and their alliance would crush humanity's faith, and then fight amongst themselves to see who would gain this new source of worship. Oh, how wrong they were. Upon entering the solar system, the mortal fleets could only see the worlds laid out before them, but the gods could see so much more. An aura of blinding brilliance encapsulated the Earth, to the point that the gods could not so much as see the planet itself. Uncomfortable with the implications of something powerful enough to block their sight, they moved forward nonetheless, still secure in their numbers. As they approached, the light became slightly more bearable, and the world came into view, but so did something else. A mighty tree, one so large that the planet was simply nestled in its branches along with 8 other worlds, though the others had a more mystical feel to them, not seeming to be bound to physical space. Movement caught their eyes and drew their gaze to the bottom of the tree, where a fierce dragon and her brood tended to the roots, then to a squirrel that scampered along the tree's length. The gods' hearts began to pound in their ethereal chests, a feeling they hadn't felt in eons. They had seen manifestations of faith like this in other worlds. Each had their own realms and themes, but what now worried them was that the brilliant light in the tree gave off different auras. They were not from the same god or pantheon. This meant the world they had set their eyes on was ruled by at least 2 different faiths, which usually wouldn't be an issue. In fact, the division of faith usually made such battles easier. But they weren't weak. The brilliant light was more intense and contained arguably more power, meaning it contained a higher concentration of faith, but the energy coming from the tree and the realms that sat upon its branches was sharp and fierce. Dangerous. A sound like a soft breath filled the ears of the invading gods, and the curtain of brilliance folded in on itself, condensing over and over, until it took on the form of a man whose face hurt to look at because of how brightly it shone. He simply stood before his world, staring at the gods while radiating a sense of ultimate calm and peace. He alone would have been enough to give the invaders pause for the amount of faith empowering him, but looking past him made them truly regret coming here. With their vision no longer obscured, not only did they now take note of a massive serpent that encircled the entire planet, but they could feel the eyes of thousands of gods gazing out at them, either from the planet itself or from ethereal realms around it. Not all of them were equal, not all were powerful, and most were clearly foes, but there was one certainty. No matter their feelings of each other, they would not tolerate the poaching of their faith by outsiders. So stunned were they by this revelation that they forgot to give the order to stop their mortal fleet's advance, and when a certain threshold was crossed, the peaceful man's energy changed, and he gave off a new feeling, that of a sheathed sword drenched in enough blood to drown an entire world. As the alien gods desperately ordered their forces to halt, they noticed the man was no longer alone. 4 riders stood at his back, each with a horrifying aura of pain and suffering, except one that simply felt like looking at death itself. But that wasn't all. Hundreds of streaks of light struck out from the world and ethereal realms to land by the bright man's sides, filling the space before the earth with not just other gods, but gods of war. Notable among them were a man with one eye and a spear, accompanied by a red-haired warrior with a fearsome hammer at his side, a woman with blue skin and 6 arms, a robed man with lightning crackling in his eyes, and by his side a man who radiated bloodlust, and an armored woman with an owl on her shoulder. A woman who felt like 3 beings in one, and even looked to be if one stared long enough, and a lion-headed man who had a bow in his hands. These were but a few members of the army that now stood before the aliens, a battle line that the mortals could not see and didn't know to fear. But their gods knew better. They gave the order to retreat, to return to their homeworlds, to leave this place with all haste. The gods themselves didn't retreat. They ran. They fled in terror from the gods of the humans, from the mighty faith of these terrifying mortals, from a war they knew they would never be able to win.